All right, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen?
Episode
Welcome to
one.
Yin Yang Modeling, episode one. Joel, you want to take it away?
Episode one. Nah, you got it. You got it. You got it. You got it.
100%. Thank you guys for watching this video. And our main purpose here is to help you guys dress better than 99% of the people in your age group. We think that there's been a lot of misrepresentation within the fashion community. You see these luxury brands that are hundreds of dollars for articles of clothing, and you still can't get a good fit together. And I don't mean to handle you guys, but that's probably why you're here. And that's why we're here to help you. We
So,
started our fashion journey a little bit ago. Joel has some runway experience we'll definitely get into. So, with that being said, let's talk about our opinion
wait,
on
wait, wait,
fashion.
wait, 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 wait. You forgot to. Okay, I know you gave a basis, but episode one, the pilot episode, first episode on air, we want to talk about why style feels inaccessible and how we can help mitigate that, how we can help fix that, how we can help give you guys some tips, some tricks, and help fashion feel more accessible. But yeah, keep going now.
100%. 100%. And with that being said, I can actually ask you this question, Joel. What
Sorry.
do you think is wrong with the fashion industry today, and why do you think that's the case?
What are things wrong with the fashion industry? That's a good question, man. What I think is wrong with the fashion industry today is there is this shared common belief that I feel like is wrong, but there's a shared common belief that fashion is expensive and you can only buy clothes brand new or expensive, or you have to stand out in some way, shape, or form. Your clothes have to be a first form. They can't be handed down. But yeah, that's the main thing that I think is wrong with the fashion industry today. I don't see many people delving into the secondhand world, which there is a lot of people that do, but there's this big misunderstanding that fashion is expensive. Just because we see this big word fashion and we think of Gucci, we think of Louis Vuitton, we think of Valentino, we think of these big name brands, but fashion is what you make it. So
Yeah.
that's the number one thing that I think is wrong with the fashion industry today. How about you? What do you think?
100%. And to add on to a little bit of what you said there,
Yeah.
we see all these fashion showcases,
Yeah.
the Paris Fashion Week, and we see all these different showcases, right? These carpet walks where people are wearing these extravagant, very unique, very bespoke outfits that, again, they may look great. And whether or not you're actually into that type of fashion, right? We want to give you practical advice
Yeah.
on what you can wear to the day to day. And I think tying that into misconceptions,
Yeah.
right? People see fashion as black and white, right? They either see comfortable athleisure clothes that you wear day to day, or maybe even pair of jeans, or they see Fashion Week in Paris where you're wearing this extravagant outfit you'd wear nowhere else. So,
Yeah.
like you said, I think our purpose here at Yin Yang Modeling is to represent that gray area of what can be done, right? And how you can actually be above average in your style every single day, right? Without breaking the bank, I think is kind of a
Yeah.
purpose for us. So, Joel, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background in how you got into fashion. Maybe we could talk about that and
Sorry.
kind of your passion for fashion.
So just to preface, 20 years old, uh, from a small town in Texas. It's not really small, but I'm from Dallas, Texas, but a smaller suburb known as Mansfield, Texas. And I guess the way I got into fashion was when I was younger, very, very, very younger. I've lived in Mansfield almost all my life since I was 7 years old. When I was younger, my parents would always take me thrifting, and back then I hated it because back then I had the mindset of my clothes should be brand new. I want the Nike, the that, the Spider Man. I want this. I want the brand new everything. But my parents would take me thrifting when I was younger, and I'd be like, wow, like I don't like any of these clothes. They stink. They're nasty. They're dirty. They're secondhand. How can I make anything of this? And I was really young when they would take me thrifting here. I'd be like 8, 9, and it wasn't until I was about 10 years old when my mom took me one day and I got this one article of clothing, and I'll never forget it. It's this Texas Rangers tee, and I wore it every single day at home to school, and I just loved it so much up until I outgrew it and I had to give it away. But that was really the first small indication of fashion is really what I make it. Like I really like this tee, and I probably curated about 100 fits with that tee at the age of 10, not knowing, but looking back, like it's like wow, I really did all that. And then growing up even more, I feel like as I kind of matured into a teenager and growing up in the 2018 early era of social media, kind of, I delved back into fashion should be high end luxury clothes, retail, and I kind of went back into that world for a little bit. And for the longest, I was wearing, just the popular brands at the time. Like when I was in seventh grade, I would tell my mom we got to go to the van store, and I owned a bunch of vans in middle school. And that's when I first discovered Paxson, which Paxson is a gray area. I still love that brand, but I first discovered Paxson then, and I bought jeans from them once, and I became addicted to them, and it just kept on going and going. It kept perpetuating until I got into high school, and my mom was like, we're not going to keep buying you these clothes. You're going to have to find money to buy these clothes somewhere. And I was like, what could I do? And then I got back into the thrifting world. And from there on, like my junior, senior year, I'd say, thrifting became my go-to, man. I just made thrifting my whole world, my whole entire world. And every day I go to the thrift store, I'd stop at two spots, Goodwill and Salvation Army, and I would leave with at least 2-3 pieces, and just those small pieces help build my wardrobe, and just kept perpetuating on and on into what it is today. And I'd still say I'm a newbie in the fashion world. I'm not, some fashion guy, some fashion demon, but I'd say I know a little bit about fashion, and that's what brought me into this world, man. So yeah, I'd like to ask you, Alan, now, what brought you into the fashion world? What brought you here into this world where I don't want to get too controversial, but people like you, I'd say, aren't as prominent in this field. So take the floor.
100%. And I love that last part you mentioned about typically people of my demographic are not very popular. And again, to give some quick context, Joel and I grew up in the same town. My name is Alan, if I haven't formally introduced myself. Joel and I grew up same town, met in high school, best friends ever since. And I've always been on the self-improvement journey, I'd say, since about 9th, 10th grade in high school. I was very overweight, lost about 65 pounds, began hitting the gym, the very typical path on self-improvement. And just recently, maybe over the past year or so, got into fashion and really styling. I think there's also a stigma around the word fashion, right? And we can dive more into this later, but people hear fashion. And again, people like me, everyday people that typically don't have passion for fashion, right? There's almost a negative stigma around the word fashion because fashion means unique, fashion means weird, fashion means not something you'd wear to class, right? And so that's the first kind of experience I had with having good style, right? Is this stigma around fashion, but in juxtaposition to that, obviously a love and good comes out of having good style, right? So I think we can dive more into that, but there's a big stigma around fashion, and that's actually what led me to become interested and kind of explore that realm, right? I wasn't necessarily as much interested in fashion as much as I was interested in improving that part of my appearance, right? Improving that style part. And so I actually want to ask you, Joel, and again, that's a little bit about myself. Joel and I started this page again to help people that were in our position, right? Help learn from our mistakes and all the money, energy, time that we've wasted. And Joel, I know you mentioned a lot on thrifting,
Yes, sir.
and thrifting's become very popular
Oh yeah,
over
yeah,
past couple of years, especially for people of our age,
yeah,
right? Both Joel
yeah.
and I around 1920. So I'm curious, Joel, what do you think are the misconceptions about thrifting, and where can people find the best ROI in thrifting?
It's a great question, man. I really appreciate that question. So, a big misconception on thrifting. That's what you said, right? What are some
Hmm.
misconceptions on thrifting? A big misconception on thrifting is, I'd say, not finding your specific style when thrifting and thinking that secondhand clothing is less than that of a brand new article of clothing. Um, Thrifting is this weird thing because many different people can thrift, right? When I say many different people can thrift is the basis of thrifting is people bring their clothes, they drop them off, and let's say the Goodwill, they hang it up for you, and many people different. I say many people different. Many different people can thrift because there's the rich man who is tired of all his Gucci and he gives it over to the thrift and boom, he puts it up in the racks, and those are the clothes you can find in the thrift, which is why I think it's become popular as of recently, because many people, they go to thrifts and they find these gems, or I should say grails, holy grails. And then there's other people who they have lesser less nice clothes, lesser nice clothes, and they thrift them in, and they get put in the racks, and people buy those, and then people say, "Oh, well, you thrifted that? That's not really something that I'd be into." And this shirt here was thrifted. It's just a blank cotton tee, and it's oversized. It's just a home shirt, but people would see this and they wouldn't think, "Oh, I'm gonna go thrift that." Like, I could tell people I thrifted this, and they'd be like, "See, that's why I don't thrift. Like, I can't find good things when I thrift." So I say all that to say, people think their style isn't in the thrift store when that's the furthest thing from the truth. Another misconception that I like to add in real quick is there's not that many good things to find in a thrift store. Many people think they have to search for hours on end to find just one good article of clothing, when in reality they don't know how to look for the specific piece of clothing that they're looking for. So it all goes to say, you need to know your style, number one. You need to know what you're looking for, number two. And number three, I'd say going with the budget. Because a lot of times people think thrifting is cheap. It's a cheaper option. But there's been times I've gone into thrift and I've spent $50 to $70, maybe even $100, and I didn't come in thinking that. So there's things that you need to come in. You need to come in with a plan when you go thrifting, and those are the only people that I think should thrift. Like, the people who come in with a plan, come in open-minded, obviously. Don't come in closed-minded. Don't come in thinking these clothes are lesser than others. I'm not going to find any thinking. I'm not going to, just come in with a plan, the three things I mentioned, and you could find whatever you want in the thrifting world. And later on, I'll show some of my grails, or some things that I think fit into my personal style that maybe other people might not agree are their personal preferences. But it just goes to show, fashion is anything you make it. It's whatever you make it. So yeah, that's what I'd like to add in with that.
100%. And I can jump in right there. I loved how you mentioned misconceptions, and
Yeah.
especially the plan. And I actually want to touch on the keys to success when thrifting,
Yeah.
right? And again, the thrifter or the thrift store will always benefit those who prepare and those who come in, like you mentioned, with a plan, right? It's very easy to go into a thrift store and almost look for what to buy, right? If you go in
Yeah.
thinking, okay, I'm going to find something that I like, that's the immediate death trap. That's where a thrift store is different from a store like PacSun, right? Where PacSun tailors all of their best clothes to be on the rack and very easy to see fits, right? Clothes that you could easily see on your body. And so, again, keys to success is, number one, most important thing, know your style, right? If you don't know your style, you're not going to know what to buy. And we can dive more into
We'll get into that.
specifically the style. But number one is know your style. Again, number two, go in with the plan, right? If you're short on pants, write down pants. Write down a list of pants, okay? You need to analyze also the colors in your wardrobe,
Yeah.
okay? You want to make sure that you're not buying duplicates. And again, it's best to go in with the list of what you have and then what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And then third is be willing to be willing to stray away from your plan occasionally. And again, this is also where the magic of thrifting comes in. Obviously, you do want to come in there with a plan. You don't want to go in blinded. But there is some magic to thrifting as well if you keep an open mind and you maybe spend an extra 5-10 minutes trying on pieces that you wouldn't originally think would be for you, that's where you can truly find those grails or those collector pieces that when you're walking across the street, somebody asks you, "Where did you get that?"
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
that's when you see, that's when you can lie and you can say, "I
yeah.
got this from Gucci for $300." And again,
UV, yeah.
if the thrifters, people from the thrift community or the style community haven't told you that already, if you find a piece like that and somebody asks you where it's from, it's 100% okay to lie and say you spent $300 on it, right? That's the magic of thrifting.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So those are my main points of success for thrifting. And we can kind of move away from thrifting. We can always go back towards it in the end. I do want to touch on some of that secondhand stuff you mentioned.
Yeah.
Actually, let's do touch on that. So, Joel, I know you and I have been on some of these secondhand stores like Depop, and some of these other stores
Yeah.
that offer secondhand material. Talk to me about how can people utilize apps like Depop better than thrift stores, right? So what are the advantages to using an app like Depop? And what are some of the disadvantages, and what are the best strategies to use? I know that's kind of a loaded question there.
It's a really loaded question, but I really do like it. Depop is a very interesting company because they took thrifting into the digital world and they made it accessible to virtually everyone. Virtually everyone. So what Depop is, if people don't know, is it's an online secondhand thrift store. If I could put it in layman's terms, it's an online secondhand thrift store that you can go on there and search up anything in the world. You can even search up comic books maybe, and it might even pop up some comic books. It's whatever clothing you think you can find, whatever piece of jewelry you think you can find, whatever any accessory you think you might want, you can go on Depop, search it up, find it easy. And what was the question again, Alan? What was the question again?
Yeah, so what are the differences, right? How does shopping on Depop different
Okay.
than thrifting? Both, pros and cons. And how can people utilize Depop to find these good thrifts? So I guess let's start with, how is Depop different, and then we can go from there.
So Depop, what makes Depop different is obviously it's online, so it's way more accessible. You don't have to go in person and search for hours and hours, like some disadvantages of the in-store thrifting. And also what you can do is, also what Depop does for you is they have an algorithm, and as you search more and more clothes, as you buy more and more clothes, they cater that algorithm to your specific style. So they find your style for you, and that alone cuts out 60% of the work of finding your style and fashion in general. It's really helpful. And another thing that is good with Depop is you can buy and sell. So what many people do is they'll have their own thrift store. Let's say it's a smaller thrift store, and they'll have their thrift store, they'll have their prices up at their thrift store, but they'll go on Depop as well and put the prices of the things in the thrift store, maybe put a little higher of a price on there, and essentially have two markets, scale their business in a way. And they'll have the thrift store, and then they'll have Depop, and if something sells on Depop, they'll take it down in the thrift store, send it to the person. If someone buys something in the thrift store, they'll take it down on Depop, and the person takes it away. So that is a big advantage of Depop, buy and sell. You can make your money on there. I have some friends actually who they're on Depop and they've made some good purchases on there. They encompass that business model of thrift store, Depop, and they've scaled their business that way. And they're in multiple cities actually. They're DFW and all across Texas actually. So it's a good way to make money. But it's a good way to make money, find your style, and do it for a fraction of the time. But if we want to go into the disadvantages, disadvantages of Depop include higher prices, essentially, because not only does Depop cut out the inconvenience of going in person, but it adds in shipping and the convenience of having the product right at your doorstep. So that adds in marketplace fees and shipping fees and all these things. But another thing to mitigate that Depop has done is you can send in offers. So if you say you see a piece like a shirt like this on Depop for $12, you can send in an offer as long as it's not lower than 60% of the value of the piece of clothing, and offer whatever you think is worth for it, and the seller can either accept or decline that offer. And yeah, let's go into the other questions, Alan, you had about Depop.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, I want to interject there, if that's all
Yeah,
right.
that's cool. That's cool.
Kind of add on to what you mentioned, right? There are some very stark differences,
Yeah.
but if you know how to use Depop and these secondhand apps correctly,
Sorry.
it'll pay off way, way more than thrifting. And so I want you to think of, I want the audience to think of this almost as a pyramid, right? And so on our bottom, we have a regular retail shopping on the bottom of my pyramid, right? You go in store, it takes up the most time. You're probably spending the most money for a piece of clothing that maybe you like, maybe you don't, and maybe everybody else already has, right? So very base level and for the average population. And then we move up a step to thrifting, right? Still very time committing, and obviously there's no online portion, but cheaper prices and more unique pieces of clothing, right? You're able to more closely tailor your style and purchase those pieces based on that, as well as build your wardrobe for cheaper. And then on top of that, right at the very top of the pyramid, we have these secondhand apps like Depop, which give the convenience of some of these large retail brands like PacSun, and I can't think of any else on the top of my head, but like PacSun and H&M. But
This one means, yeah.
it offers the uniqueness and the bespoke nature of these one of one pieces at a low price that you're able to negotiate.
Yeah.
And that's why I think really the power and the benefit comes into apps like Depop. And so quickly, I kind of want to summarize that and put it all into a simple guide if you haven't started Depop before, right? So like Joel mentioned, it helps you and suggests pieces that you specifically like, you view more often. It's almost like TikTok of sorts. It
Yeah. Short form content.
personalizes your feed to the pieces of clothing that you like, right? Based on how much time you spend viewing these pieces of clothing. So again, we'll talk about knowing what your style is, but that's the baseline requirement for any type of shopping or style building, right? You need to know your style. But once you do know your style, right, the strategy for this is to every 30 minutes a day, right, whether that's in your bed right before you go to sleep or right when you wake up, you scroll through and have a couple specific pieces in mind, right? So to give you an example, on Depop right now, I'm looking for a brown leather jacket. I'm looking for basic jeans, blue jeans. I'm also looking for some brown shoes, brown dress shoes of sorts. And so for 30 minutes every day, I go on and I see these specific items that I want, right? And then all you do from there is you throw out as many offers as you can at that 40% price. And like Joel mentioned, go ahead. You want to jump in?
No, I was correcting you. I think you said 40. I think it's 60.
Right. So 60, it lets you take a discount of up to 40, which is again like 60% of
Yeah.
the original price. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So again, throw in those discounts, right? You can throw a discount up to 40% off the original price or 60% of the total value.
Yeah.
And you do that, you throw out as many offers as you can. Depop has no limit, and you just wait, right? Some people won't accept it. Some people decline it immediately. But just the other day, to give you an example, I bought a pair of Carhartt jeans for $6.
$6.
$6. Where retail, Joel, how much do you think those pants are retailing for?
Dude. Somewhere between 120 to 200, honestly, retail.
Right. And again, it was great quality. And so obviously there's resale opportunity there. Don't get me wrong, like you mentioned. But I think
Yeah.
in terms of style and in the perspective of style, you are able to find high quality, bespoke, unique items at a low cost, at the convenience in your own home, on your own phone, delivered to your own house. Joel, anything to add on that?
No, I don't have anything to add on that. I think you put it in pretty well, especially with that pyramid. I like that visualization for all those visual learners out there. I think we can move on to our next segment, which is finding out your style. Honestly, the core of fashion in general. What works for you? What doesn't work for you? What do you like? What don't you dislike? What essentially what is you? I could ask, like, what is you? A lot of people know their style. A lot of people don't know their style. For me, my personal style is I like vintage pieces of clothing. I like older clothes. I like older clothes. If I could say that, if I could put it in layman's terms, I like older clothes. One, because I feel like it fits my aesthetic. I feel like I kind of come off as an old soul. My friends call me Unc. A lot of my friends call me Unc. So,
Yeah.
into the vintage clothes, it fulfills me in a way. And I do think vintage clothing is timeless, in my opinion. You can never go wrong with vintage clothing. Quickly, I'd like to ask Alan, what would you say is your style, real quick?
Definitely. And to start, my style, I like to think of it as darker. And again, it may
Okay.
be cringy to say this. I don't really care, but more of a
Style is,
bad boy.
Style is you. Just keep
Yeah.
going.
Again, style is you. So the best way I could describe it is more of a bad boy aesthetic. I like darker colors. I like more simple colorways with the focus on the texture and the fit. Right. So I particularly love all black outfits, and depending on what our profile picture is now, you may see me in a all black outfit. I love simple pieces
Yep.
that contrast the skin tone well
Yep.
and really draws people in,
Yes, sir.
right? It, I like to think of my style as kind of like a mystery, right?
Hmm.
It's dark and it prompts interest from people that I interact with, right?
Yeah.
Oh, what was your choice for this outfit? I see you're wearing all black. Like, are you emo? I love when people get me with that comment. Are you emo? Like,
Yes,
is
sir.
everything okay? Things like that. And I'd say that's my style. And, quickly, Joel, if I could add something on kind of discovering your style, I think what's important, the first step in discovering your style is thinking about actually not yourself, but the type of people you like, specifically people of the opposite gender,
Hmm.
right? And so if you think about the type of people that you are attracted to, so I want you viewers to envision that in your mind, right? And then imagine from their perspective
Okay.
what type of style they would find attractive or they would be interested in. And again, this maybe isn't for everybody. Some people think that it's a little performative, that you're thinking in terms of other perspectives, right? But I think this is a great start to put you in the right spot. Because let's be real, probably one of the reasons you clicked on this video to improve your style is you want to be more attractive to the opposite gender, right? Whether that's a girl you have in mind in your chemistry class or, maybe a girl you work with, right? And so I'm going to keep it real with you guys. The best way to improve in that way and to get these people to compliment you, right? Your target audience, if I may, is to dress how they would want you to dress, right? To dress with their perspective in mind. And so, to kind of give an example here, let's say I liked specifically alternative style white girls, right? If you guys can kind of envision what those type of girls are, what they wear, what they sound like, how they talk, right? If I start and choose my style that is very clean, old money, do you think that they would like that? Probably not, right? Probably not. They would want something maybe similar to them represented in your style. So that's my first point. I mean, Joel, if you want to add anything on that or maybe
Yeah. Yeah.
your first thought to developing the style?
So I do like your point. That is a way of thinking of how you can start to develop your style. But honestly, I wouldn't say I disagree, but my thoughts differ on that note. I think viewers, if you're listening, I also forgot to add that while I do wear vintage pieces of clothing, I also am more experimental with those vintage pieces of clothing. I do love vintage, but I like adding in hints of what is that, or why would that go there, here, and there, if that makes sense. I like experimenting a lot with my clothes, and that's that. But to answer the question of the core of how to find your style is, I would say definitely start experimenting. Experimentation is key. And with experimentation, not only do you find out who you truly are, but when you first look at an article of clothing and you have it on you, right? Think in that moment, what are you feeling? Do you feel empowered by these clothes? Do you feel insecure, like you have to kind of hide what you're wearing, or you feel like you're doing too much, or it's not you? Do you feel ashamed, like I shouldn't be wearing this, what's going on? And if it's anything but the first one, it's not your style. But if it is the first one, that's you. If you feel bold, confident, and empowered by wearing that piece of clothes, whatever it is, then that's how you find your style. I say experiment, put on the clothes, and if you feel bold and empowered by it, that's your style. And with that being said, experimentation comes in many different forms, but I think one thing that's universal in fashion is finding out the fitment of your clothes. So, number one, you're going to need to find out your small, medium, large, right? I think everybody here knows that already. But that being said, the fitment of your clothing matters more than anything. How the clothes fit on you is the most important thing within your style. Fitment beats the brand. Fitment beats the meaning of the clothes. Fitment beats every single thing. So, experiment as much as you want, but you want to get the right fitment. And when I say fitment, this is another segment. It brings in proportions and lengths and blase, a whole bunch of other stuff. But at the basis of it, you want to see how the clothes fit you and if they fit well with your body. And there's a whole bunch of other things, Alan, if you want to add in. I know you
Definitely.
technical terms. So, yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And you really just opened a can of worms with that one, Joel, because like you mentioned, fit comes before anything, even before knowing what your style is.
Yeah.
And to give you an example, a basic outfit that fits well will always beat a well thought out, complex, great outfit that does not fit the wearer, the person wearing it, right? And again, there's a ton of things to touch on with fit, but let's talk about the most important thing, which is obviously fit, right? So, but fit in the context of what you're wearing. And I think there's a couple techniques we can bring up here. First is the tight loose technique, is what I like to call it. And I might have to copyright that later, but
Honestly, yeah.
the tight loose technique is you never wear two of the same fit. For example, if I have a tight slim fit shirt and tight running shorts, that's a no-go for an outfit. Maybe for a run, right? Or maybe to go to the gym, but it's not great for an outfit, right? But if I wear that same slim fit black shirt with some wide leg baggy jeans, that's an outfit right there. It contrasts between the slim fit of your top, right, and the large, accentuated nature of your pants.
Yeah, I'd like to interject real quick.
Yeah.
Back that up. So when Alan says these things, I think we need to preface that we're just touching on the basics today. In some cases, tight on tight fits good on some body types. In some cases, baggy on baggy fits good on some body types. So today we're just teaching the basics, and take what Alan's saying with a grain of salt. Go try it out, but if you think it doesn't fit you, try it on the tight on tight, try it on the loose on loose. But what Alan is saying is very good, because it's an essential into the fitment of clothes and how they will fit well on your body. And for 80% of people, 80 to 90% of people, the tight loose method, or what was this
Technique.
technique, is the basis of what you should be starting your clothes off with. So keep going now. Sorry.
100%. Yeah. And again, like you mentioned, take everything with a grain of salt, right? This is just a guideline and basic into building a style. And we're really speaking to those people. I know whether it's you or whether you know somebody,
Yeah.
those people that every day, shorts and a t-shirt, not matching, maybe some
Right.
on clouds or some New
Yeah.
Balances on the feet, right? And maybe that's you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Joel and I were both there, and I promise you it's not that hard to get to a good style. It's not that hard to be above average, truly.
It's not.
And so that's one of the techniques, the tight loose, right? But it also ties into the silhouette more broadly, right? And I think the reason why sometimes the tight and tight doesn't work is if it clashes with your silhouette. And so again, this is something that each person is going to have to experiment themselves. Everybody has a different body type, everybody has a different silhouette. And on that same note, right, you need to understand your body shape, right? You need to understand your structure. And you can look this up online. There's a ton of examples, but you need to understand your body type, right? Some people have the oval type, some people have the inverted triangle, that sort of Dorito build that, you know, a lot of people in the gym strive for. Some people have the regular triangle, some people have square. And so you need to understand your body shape and then choose the fit and to contrast or to bring that body type back to the most attractive or the most preferred, which again it yeah, in my view, and I think I can say as a majority view both for men and women, men look best either with the square silhouette or the inverted triangle silhouette, right, where you kind of show that V taper and slim down the waist. And so let's just, Joel, how about you walk me through some examples on maybe some of the different body types and maybe what works and what doesn't work for them?
That's great. First, I'd like to add in with what you're saying about the body types and clothes. Clothes don't fit bodies. Bodies fit the clothes. So what I mean by this is, whatever body style you have is gonna fit the clothing, not the opposite way around. So, number one, you think you're insecure about your body, hate to say it, but work on that. Get confident in your body, because I'm about to go into what body types work with clothes and what body types don't work with clothes. So I'd like to start off with the Dorito build, like you said, the V taper, right? So with the V taper build in a man, there's many types of clothes that can fit on that body type. I'd say we kind of fit into that category a little bit, not to brag. We kind of fit into there. But we also do have two separate bodies, I'd say. We fat in different places. So with me and having the Dorito build, kind of tighter clothes kind of complement my body better. So when I go, so Alan mentioned the tight, loose technique. My body type doesn't fit that style. I go more so tight on tight. I go tight on tight starting off, and then I layer in something kind of baggier, and then I'll go maybe baggy on the shoe. Like it's so tedious, because there's so many different clothing types that I can bring into different body types. But for me specifically, that's what I can say I can bring in. The square body type clothes that can fit into that are definitely the tight loose technique. That's where I'd agree the squared body type comes into play with those clothes. If you don't go to the gym, which is okay, and you have just a narrow physique, playing into manipulating the way the clothes fit you will be a strength for you, because, like I said, the clothes don't fit the bodies fit the clothes. So try the tight loose technique, try a loose technique, try the tight technique until it works for you. Honestly, we give you these tips, but If they don't work, switch them around. See what works for you. So, Alan, take the floor away again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to interject there and kind of give some more light on these examples, right? And so when you have this inverted triangle build, right, you want to make sure you display this. And for example, I tend to think I'm somewhat in this category, right? Both Joel and I. And so a very common fit of mine, right, in the winter or even in the summertime, is I will wear a slim fit t-shirt, right, that does accentuate my broad shoulders and somewhat slim waist. And then I will wear baggy or I'd say loose fit jeans, not extremely baggy, just on the normal baggy loose fit, right? And so what this does is it accentuates and displays this natural V taper, which again, it's shown through empirical evidence that women are more attracted to this Dorito sort of build, right? But again, like Joel said, if you have a square body type, or even if you have a regular triangle, right? Or excuse me, regular triangle like this, where, sorry, I think I'm, yes, regular triangle like this, right? Where the waist is wider than the shoulders, well, then you want to make sure you buy clothes that kind of manipulate that, if you will, right? So a great idea would be having a baggy, right, jacket with maybe some shoulder pads, like maybe a leather jacket that has very naturally broad shoulder seams, and wearing that with some baggy pants. That's a perfect fit, and it will help kind of display this attractive frame on a man of inverted Dorito or even box, right, is a good frame too. And so I think rectangle is nice because you can play both sides, right? You can wear a rectangle shape and you can just wear normal fit clothes, right? So if that's like an oversized or, loose fit shirt with loose pants, you can do that. But you can also accentuate like the regular triangle does, right? With kind of bringing these more boxier clothes and complementing that with some wide pants. So those are a couple examples I have. Any more thoughts or anything to kind of add on that, Joel?
No, I think you said that pretty well. Um, I think the body types, it's more of your expertise, I'd say. I kind of don't like to play into those stereotypes a little bit. I kind of just like to, I said I'm experimental, so I like just putting on anything. So you being the more,
You could say formulaic.
yeah, formulaic, analytical oriented is what I was gonna say. Analytical oriented and attention to detail type is what I really like about you. And I like to say, I like to preface this, guys, as well. If you don't have someone in your life who can look at your outfits and give you any tips and tricks or any hold on, sorry. So let me start over. So guys, if you, I like to say oh my gosh, bloopers, man. Cut. Nah, let me stop. I'd like to add in, guys, it's very important to find someone in your life who can help guide your outfits and what they can say about you. So someone who can rate your outfits, someone who can give you tips and tricks on what looks good, what doesn't. Me and Alan, we send pictures back and forth to each other of our fits, and we say, what do you like about this? What do you not like about this? What do you think I can improve? What do you think don't need to improve? And it really does help because we tend to have a self-bias about ourselves. We tend to think, we're the best dressed people in the world. I don't know about now, but I have a bias by myself, and sometimes I might not see this area of, oh, this might not look good here. So just find someone in your life who can tell you, oh, maybe this doesn't look good. You can add on this, or that looks really good. I think you can also do this. Just find that person in your life, just one person, two person, a friend group, a family member, anyone who can help you improve on your style. So yeah.
Yeah, I want to second that. Is having somebody that understands style, whether that is a little sister, an older sister, even again a female friend, they tend to be more in touch with the fashion side, or having a close male friend that is also in touch with style, right, and dress as well. I think again, you want to obviously speak to somebody about your style and get opinions about your style from somebody who wears nice clothes and you admire their style. You don't want to go to somebody with a crappy style and say, "Hey, what do you think about my outfit?"
Yeah.
So I think that's again very integral part that most people miss is being able to have a good, trustworthy second opinion, right? Because again, in building this style, I remember when I first started out, I didn't know what looked good. I didn't know. I was always scared to wear baggy clothes. I was never a baggy fit type of person with the pants, especially. And, after getting opinions from Joel and my younger sister, who I'm really close with, I was able to understand and give it a shot, right? And then obviously turned out to be great, looked great on me, and I haven't gone back ever since. But like Joel mentioned, it's really important to get that second opinion. And there was something else I wanted to touch on as well, which is left my mind. It's escaping me. I'll let you know if it comes back to me. But obviously, this is the first episode mainly focused on style and fashion. But drop a comment down below wherever you guys are watching this. If you're watching the long form on YouTube, on what else you guys would like to hear about. We're very open. Again, we have passion and self improvement in general, so the whole 9 yards. But just let us know. This is more of a still broad, but more targeted towards style in general. And so that's what I'm gonna say about that. Um, Now, Joel, talk to me. If I'm watching this, I have $100 to spend to upgrade my wardrobe. What am I buying? And actually, while you answer this, I'm gonna use the restroom real quick. So I'll leave you be with the viewers
Okay.
to answer this. I'll be right back.
Okay. So if you're given $100, if you make $100 and you have $100 to spend on an outfit, there is a lot you can do in terms of our realm of budgeting your style. So you can take that $100 and we're gonna split this up into two stores. My go-tos: Goodwill, Salvation Army. You take your $100. Obviously, you come in with the plan, the three things we talked about. Knowing what you're going in for, knowing a general budget, and be willing to experiment a little bit. Be willing to find those grails. So you go in with $100. I'm gonna base this off of how I like to thrift. So when I go into the thrift store, when I go into Goodwill, immediately I go to the left. I go over to the miscellaneous items, go over to the lamps and the books and the food scales and blase items, because it's just fun for me. I just like to go over there just to see what's going on over there. And immediately after I go from there, I go to the back section, which is the men's t-shirts. So I go back there and I start looking. All right, let's say I come in with my plan. My plan is to find, I have $100. My plan is to find at least 2 t-shirts and 2 pairs of bootcut jeans, and possibly some boots with $100, because it's possible on a $100 budget if you're thrifting at these 2 stores. So I go to the back section. I look around. I obviously want to know what color I'm looking for, which colors does play a big part of your style and how that fits into you and your specific skin tone and all that. But we won't talk about that today because it's a lot. But let's say I'm looking for a black t-shirt. So I go to the t-shirt section, scrolling through, looking through, and I don't want anything graphic on it. So usually at my Goodwill, they'll have the graphics and the blanks separated. So I'll go immediately over to the blanks. I'll look through. Obviously, I'll see my size, medium. I see a good blank shirt, black, like this one. Pick it up, boom. That's one shirt. And another color I'm looking for is tan beige, because that looks good on my skin color. So I go over to the tan beige section, tan beige white section. Go over there, boom, boom, boom. Look around. I see a tan shirt somewhere similar to this, blank. Pick that up. Boom. That's another shirt. And then I'll go in, take 2 steps from the back into the pants section, the pants/jeans section. And I'll go into the jeans, find my specific size. If you don't know your size, get a measuring tape and go halfway and then measure that, or go around. It's complicated, but I mean, you should know your pant size regardless. But go over there. My pant size is a 32 x 32. So I'll go try to find something boot cut again. I'll look through, and as I'm looking through, I'm not seeing a lot. So I'm just like, damn, I'm gonna give up here. But you can't do that. The thing with thrifting is it's very tedious. It's a tedious process. A lot of people don't like thrifting because they say it takes a long time, which it does, honestly. If you're coming in, especially looking for specific pieces, it will take up some time, obviously. Some boot cut. Boot cut is very popular right now, so it will be maybe hard to find, but I say you shouldn't give up. So you keep looking, and you happen to find a 32x32 boot cut pair of jeans after maybe 10 minutes of searching. But you end up finding that, and boom, you have a basic fit right there. And we said we wanted to come in with a pair of boots as the experimental grail thing that we wanted to find today. So we're already doing pretty good on the budget. You know, the two shirts we looked at, $5 a pop, so $10. You know, they're nicer. They don't have any stains on them, so they're a little bit higher. That's a little bit higher price on their side. So you're already at $10. The jeans, they're boot cut. They're kind of popular. They're Levi's 527s. So you know, that's gonna cost a little bit. We'll say that's $12, which is still really low compared to retail. But what are you at right now? It's at 22. Am my math right, Alan?
22. Yep.
Ooh, you're at $22. So we also said we wanted to come in with some boots. So here's where the controversy comes in. So I said I'm more experimental. So my first thought is not to look in the men's section for boots, but to cross over into the women's section and search for boots that might be my size. At my Goodwill, people don't judge, really. People don't care that I'm in the women's section. Sometimes there are people that care. There was a grandma one time that looked at me and said, women's. She looked at me and said, women's. And I was like, pretend like I didn't know English. I just laughed at her. But I'll go to the women's section and see if I can find some boots that are maybe bigger, because in my opinion, women's fashion is 10 times better than men's fashion, honestly. You know, women, the way clothes are catered to women is just amazing, you know, compared to men, and especially in thrift stores. In thrift stores, you'll just find a lot of blank tees and pants, but when you go to the women's section, you'll see a lot of pieces that are catered towards a woman's body and a woman's proportions, which is a whole different segment that me and Alan honestly can't even get into. But I'll go into the women's sections for those boots because they have that better selection. So I'll search for my size, obviously, 11, 12 in boots, which is, I don't know what that is in women's, but I think they're somewhat proportional because it's a thrift store. They don't really care for gender sizes in the thrift store. They just put boots up, no matter the size. So if I go over there and I can't find the boots, cool. That's when I'll go to the men's section as a secondary. And I'm looking, I'll look through, I'll go to the size 11. Sometimes I'll also look through the smaller sizes, because reality is these people who work in these thrift stores, sometimes they don't care. Sometimes they're not passionate about the job that they're doing, so they'll just throw them anywhere. So I'll look through all the sizes, and lo and behold, you know, in a perfect utopian world, I find my boots. And boots in a thrift store like Goodwill are relatively cheap. I got some boots the other day from over there for $8. I mean, I call boots, I mix in boots with loafers and cowboy boots and heel-toe boots, and I mix in all that together as boots. So I found some loafers there for $8, but the shoes that you found with the $100 are there, and they're $8 as well. And they're actual calf length boots for $8. Imagine, you know, they're kind of beat up, but you can still make a fit with that. And how much did I say they were? $8, right? So what are we at now? With 30?
30.
Go to the register, you check out. That's $30. But I said we're going to two stores. So you go to the Salvation Army, and this is where you pull in the experimenting, because Salvation Army is an interesting store because they have a wider selection, I'd say, than Goodwill, especially mine. So I've been able to get a lot of pieces from Salvation Army that have played major roles in my experimentations, including nice leather jackets, really, really nice loafers / boots, really nice graphic tees that I wear at home, or just a lot of anything. So you can go there with the extra, $70 that you have?
Yeah.
You can go to Salvation Army with the extra $70 you have and just get whatever you want. All right, you don't have to care for the proportions or anything. Just experiment. That's what I would do. I would just go experiment, and yeah, that's what I do. But I want to get your perspective, Alan, on what you do with $100 and how you would, go about budgeting your style in terms of our talk today. Yeah.
Definitely. And I know we're running a little bit short on time here, running just about the hour mark. So I think we can, I'll answer this. Maybe we wrap up with some final thoughts and maybe some ideas or comments for next time, and we'll get going. So I actually take a different take. I disagree with you a little bit there, and I want to give more of a beginner friendly, less fashion, more style, right? So more practical, looking good without having to know fashion, without having to know style every day, right? So building this wardrobe, $100, very, very feasible if you play the cards right. So first thing I would do, let's talk about the blanks or the basics, right? And to give context, just in case you don't know, I know Joel has mentioned the term blanks a ton on the podcast, but blank or basic refers to any t-shirt or any top for that matter that is a solid color and typically a normal fit. So no experimentation and very very diverse in terms of the fits that you can create, right? Very the word is losing me, but very diverse in versatile, very versatile, right? That's the first thing. So blanks you don't need to thrift, and I would actually recommend not to thrift blanks, right? That can come with stains, may not fit you correctly, very unorganized. I would actually recommend for the blanks because they are still very cheap to go shop at a store like PacSun or H&M. Your favorite retail store that those basics will fit you. And if you don't know, go to a Target, go to a PacSun, go to the mall, and find a store that has the best fitting basics on your body, right? I want you to buy 3 basics from that store. I want you to buy a plain white, a plain black, and a neutral that goes well with your skin tone. If you don't know a neutral that goes well with your skin tone, we'll talk about that later, right? That could be a gray, that could be a beige, that could be an off-white, cream, etc. We'll talk about that next time. 3 basics. Let's say if you catch it at a good time, right? Those basics are probably $10 a pop. Could say lower, but we'll say on average $10 a pop. That's $30, right? And then what I want you to do is go on Depop. I want you to find 2 pairs of jeans that fit you. And make sure, again, typically baggy is always going to be best, right? And make sure waist and the length fit you. So for me, 32, baggy. I go on Depop. You can get those jeans for a bargain. Let's say $8. Plus shipping, around $15 per jeans. That's another $30. $60 we're at, okay? We have 2 pairs of jeans and 3 tops. That builds 6 different outfits already, right? Now what we want to look for is a jacket. And we want to look for a nice quality black or brown basic jacket that you can wear with all 3 of those basics. That's going to cost you around $30 if you can negotiate right with the shipping included. Okay? So that's $90 total. Now again, $10 left. Maybe you can find something cheap on Depop or just take the $10, put it in your back pocket. But with those, again, you get 3 basics, 2 pairs of jeans, and a jacket. So obviously, assuming you have a half-decent pair of shoes at home. If you don't, go in your dad's closet. He probably has a pair of dress shoes or a pair of high-quality shoes that you can wear. And from there, you have really, again, I don't know how many outfits. I think that's at least, 6? And you have, I think that's 12 outfits.
Yeah, very minimum 10. If you can make
very minimum 10.
10, yeah.
So that's my practical guide that I think you can walk away with today, right? You can start, okay, I have $100 today. I'm going to go do that. You do that and you'll completely change your wardrobe. You completely change your style. People ask you what changed. Maybe they'll ask you if you're gay, you know what I mean? Because people have the stereotype that gay people have better fashion, right? But hey, take it as a compliment. And that's it for...
Hold on. I'd like to add something before you close out. So me and Alan, we both gave very different ways you can spend $100, and that is the whole premise of this brand in general. Yin and yang. Me and Alan have 2 completely different minds. You see how we completely the thought of $100. We completely thought of different ways to spend $100. I like this way because it's very practical, but I'm an experimental guy. I like just doing things. I don't like to do things the normal way. The way Alan explained things is the way I feel like he got into fashion, right? If I'm not mistaken, you
100%.
blanks. You went the practical route. I didn't. I didn't go that way. I started out with what the example I gave you. I started out just thinking that I might look good in the style, and I went out and thrifted what I thought my style was, and I started out that way. And then I kind of built my blanks and basics after that. But I say all this to say that yin and yang. You aren't me. You aren't Alan. You have your own brain. And if you don't think the ways that we said you can spend $100 is good, then by all means, find a way that you think you can spend $100 better. But that goes back to finding your person who can compliment you or give you some tips and tricks on your fashion in general, on your style. And yeah, that's all I had to say. And Alan, if you'd like to close this out, man.
Definitely, yeah. We can give some closing remarks too. I kind of want to touch on what Joel said as a great closing remark or something to take away, right? And I think if you take only one thing away from this podcast is, like Joel said, you truly have to find your own way in fashion and in style, right? Again, with the yin and yang, I am more on the practical side to give you a tip specifically for those non-fashion people who just want to have a better wardrobe immediately and not really think about it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, whether you are one of those people or whether you're somebody who's very into fashion, it's important to take everybody's perspective with a grain of salt and really discover it for your own,
Yes.
right? Discover what works for you, discover what doesn't work for you, and pivot from there, right? And really, once you know yourself, then that's when the true success and the true joy of fashion and styling yourself comes out. So that's a closing remark for me. Now, Joel, tell me, in your opinion, if people had to only walk away with one thing from this video, what would you have to tell them?
I would say don't rush things. The silence is okay. I'll say that again. Don't rush. Silence is okay. And I say this to say, in this world where everything is plastered online, shown online, and our whole lives are based upon the approval of someone else, a like on a story, a like on a post, it's okay to take this journey you're about to embark on and do it behind the scenes. See what works with you, grab a friend, ask them, do you like this, do you not like this, and just build your style in quietness. If posting online is your thing, that's cool. But with me, when I started, I was quiet. I didn't tell anybody that I was doing this. Even Alan, too. I was quiet from him as well. But I slowly opened up to him, and I didn't rush him. I was very quiet with it, and I'm still quiet to this day with it. I don't post my fits online as much, but I'm going to get there. And I just like to say, just don't rush it. The silence is okay. And yeah, that's what I like to say. That's all I like to say.
100%. I think there's no more to be said on that front. You left it on a great tone. And like I mentioned earlier, first episode, but feel free, give us some comments. Obviously, subscribe, follow, like, wherever you're viewing it, if you liked it. Give us some comments down below what else you'd like to see. Again, Joel and I are very big on self-improvement, so I'm big into face care. We're big into lifting as well, big into women, right? How to talk to females. That's a whole other thing we could get into.
A whole other episode. Y'all just stay tuned.
So we might make this a series to where, this episode's fashion, next episode is skincare.
Who knows?
So,
Stick around.
Yeah, man. Stay posted. Joel had a lot of fun tonight.
Subscribe, repost, comment, show your mom, show your dad, show everyone. Who doesn't want to have good style? Come on, man.
Go mess with it, baby. Let's go. See y'all later. Yin and yang out. Let's go.
Let's go.